the parts for Peg were, difficult, half tones and all of that. But Michael's voice just is so beautiful. And what was neat about that on a technical point, and Roger Nichols pointed this out to me, that he so loved recording Michael because he had like what he called a built-in limiter in his throat, which meant the dynamics weren't going all over the place, louds and softs, that it was so smooth. He didn't really have to use much limiting, a device that takes up really louds and really softs and kind of compresses them and makes them more even.
Okay.
Does that explain anything to you?
No, that makes sense.
He naturally did that in his throat, and
he had that control in his singing voice.
He did, and he was just a joy to record. The meter would just move just a little bit, instead of going wham, wham, wham.
Wow.
Yeah, he had great mic technique and a great voice, and that was always a treat. And then for the longest time on the song Peg, there was a Lyricon solo by Tom Scott, which is the instrument that you hear going do 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 do. That's a Lyricon, and that's like a synthesized clarinet sort of thing. And so he had done a solo on that, and with the Lyricon, and that's what I heard in my head for 7.5 months or however long it was on there, until the record company decided that it had to have a guitar solo to make it a radio hit. And
so the solo was actually that synth at first?
It was a Lyricon solo for the longest time. And here, shout out to Cynthia Nichols. I'll have to ask her this. If she has one of the cassettes that her dad had made of Peg before the guitar solo was put on it, and it was the Lyricon solo, because for the longest time, even when it was playing on the radio, in my head, I heard the Lyricon solo about to come on, and then the guitar, Jay Graydon's guitar would be on there.
So you heard this early demo of Peg that no one else has heard, and you can still hear it in your head, where it's, instead of Jay Graydon's, legendary guitar solo, there's just the synth.
Well, I have to admit, I can't remember that solo.
You can't remember the melody
right now.
or anything?
Not right now, but all it would need is like one or two notes, and I would have that. And I bet you anything Simpson's got a cassette of that.
And it took the longest time for them to get that guitar solo, because
they didn't have a long time. They were at the end. I think they had gone beyond their deadline and were over budget by that time. It was like the very last thing. So every night was a different guitar player who came in, and maybe there were two in a night, but I doubt it. I'm trying to think back, but they didn't like any of them. They weren't the right thing. And
do you remember who else took a shot?
Yeah, there was Robin Ford. There was Elliot Randall.
Yep.
There was
Rick Derringer.
No, Rick Derringer didn't do it.
Larry Carlton, did he ever do it?
Larry Carlton probably took a stab at it.
Yeah.
And Jay Graydon was the last one to come in, and it was by Roger Nichols' suggestion, I think. He said, well, why don't you try this guy? And Jay was very, very different than the vibe in the session. He was like, hey man, B flat. And he was really chatty, and he was just this, he calls himself the rake, meaning he'd rake in any work, and he would work on anything. And
I think that was the only time he actually played on a Steely Dan song.
Well, they had, and that whatever he played had to be it. That was the last one. They had, whether they liked it or not, it was going on the record. And that was not something they were enthusiastic about, that they had that pressure from the record company. And so
Right.
thank God, whatever he did, however many takes, they were able to edit it together to make it that solo that we all know and love.